shooting the shit with Saints.
What up, everybody? Like, subscribe, comment to the
Saints.
channel. I'm with my dog Kris Wilson here doing a finals preview. What the world wants. This will be released the day of the finals game. Welcome in. If you haven't been to the channel, obviously, man, go look at my videos and shit. Big Heat fan. Disappointed. Went over it. Whatever. All right, we got the Warriors
back,
versus
bro.
the Celtics.
The Warriors are actually
All right,
back.
stat of the day.
Okay, hit me. Hit me with something good, bro. Make my wheels turn.
Since Steve Kerr has been the coach of the Golden State Warriors.
Wait. Let me stop you. Are you going to hit on his playoff record?
18-0. 18-0 in the Western Conference.
Bro.
Absolutely insane. It's crazy they've come from anybody can coach this team. Look at Luke Walton. Look at this. Look at that. You see Mike Brown step in for 2 games. Looks like they're about to lose a fucking series.
Legit almost lost
Dude,
series.
They literally almost burned his contract in Sacramento. That was horrific. Holy shit.
Side note, that was
one
of the top days on Twitter was watching Mike Brown trend and seeing if the Kings could revoke his hire. That was crazy.
Landon didn't understand what I was saying. I was like, has anybody ever been fired from replacement head coach? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, Mike Brown, bro. He is fucking up. Yeah. Just around this game. Okay, so a couple things. It's the first time 2 top defenses ever have met since 2010. First top 5 defenses of defensive rating, right? Top 5 in defensive rating have met since 2010. So talking about 12 years of that not happening. I think that's huge. When you think when you think playoffs, you think defense. You got the Warriors with the best defensive rating in the regular season, most points per game in the postseason, even after losing by 55. And then you got the struggling 8th in offensive rating Celtics. I think they're 8th in pace as well. So they just haven't been scoring well. And that's what I've always said. I'd never thought their half-court offenses was that good. But in this matchup, they've always been good against the Warriors.
They have.
I think the Celtics have the best record of any team against Steve Kerr as the head coach of the Warriors.
Yep.
And they just match up well. Their length, their ISO scoring, the way they can bully those tiny guards. And like I've said before, when I look at certain teams, like I looked at the Brooklyn Nets, and I look at your guards, and you have Bruce Brown, Kyrie Irving, and Seth Curry out there.
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to stop anybody. So then now I'm looking at a laterally challenge Klay Thompson, not the same defender, can shoot. I think he's looking for a shot a little too much, but can shoot. Steph Curry is better on defense, what people have given him credit for.
Sure.
And yeah, you have Andrew Wiggins, but when Jordan Poole's out there, it's dog food to me.
Suspect.
It's dog food. So what are you intrigued about in this playoff series in particular? Is it the movement against the defense, the Warriors move versus the defense, the 3-point shooting, all that shit? What is it?
Well, I think the storyline everyone's become obsessed with. We've already started to, similarly to the way that we didn't give Miami wasn't in the series before it started, right? We crowned the winner of the Bucks and Celtics. I think a lot of talk has gone into Steph Curry's legacy if and when he wins Finals MVP, right? We've already we've skipped ahead. Everyone's played out these what-if scenarios without even playing a game. So as much as I would love to indulge in that, and that is important-ish depending on how you view it, we can deal with that when we get there. This series to me is really interesting because, like you said, Boston is the #1 switch-heaviest team in the NBA. And to be able to contain the Warriors or even try, switching is pretty important. They don't really have a guy that you can attack. I know late in that Miami series, Jimmy Butler, they were starting to switch him onto Derek White. That was the preferred matchup. And the Celtics.
But Derek White's not even a liability like that.
Yeah.
He was just exposing it. Derek White is not a bad defender.
He's not at all. And that's what I'm getting at. Jimmy
Yeah.
plays with like an ISO mid-range power and deceptiveness that was a little bit too strong for Derek White, whereas the Warriors don't have any scorers like Jimmy Butler. They're all finesse scorers, as I would like to say. It's not calling them soft. They're shooters. They're finesse scorers. They're not playing through contact. So I think Boston is probably going to be pretty happy to continue that switch heaviness in this series, which is going to be really interesting because while that is probably the best way to slow down the Warriors, I think if you fall asleep for half a second on some of those switches, they're so much more creative with ball movement, how they slip screens, and how they dive to the basket, and just what makes them unique. A la Steph Curry, he is the fulcrum, right? He is the system. He is, they tried all those years with, Kelly Oubre and people who didn't really fit that the ball jumping mojo. They don't do ISO scoring. It's not in their DNA. Boston's going to have to move even while they switch, probably a lot more than they're used to, because again, everybody pretty much outside of Robert Williams and I suppose Al Horford and Grant Williams to a degree can catch and shoot, or catch and pass immediately, or catch and dribble drive and create for somebody else. So Boston's really interesting both ways you look at it. We talked about this earlier, man, and I know you've got a list. I think Boston is actually the better team top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
But we saw a lot of it late in Game 7, and you touched on this way before I did. You cannot trust Boston when the game gets tight. And
wait for the stats I got for you.
They have been front-running in the playoffs like nobody's business. Not from an emotional talk shit Devin Booker front-running, but when they get out on you early and their defense starts playing with energy and they can run, that's really when they're at their best. And the Warriors' Achilles heel, while you touched on it, they're the number one offensive rating in the NBA playoffs, by the way, the Warriors.
Yeah.
They can turn the ball over. And so they're loose with the ball, which comes with teams that move and pass as much as they do. You're going to have deflections and steals and things like that, and the other teams can get out and run the other way. So I think Golden State's ability to protect the ball or lack thereof is I'm just curious to see how much that gets Boston out of the gate and running and into what they do well, attacking in transition.
Absolutely. And I think that on that point, it's almost because Boston turns the ball over a lot, too, on certain instances where it's alarming. But at the same time, the way Golden State turns the ball over, it's careless, but at the same time, it has good intention. Mm-hmm. With Boston, it seems like they turn the ball over because they've ISO'd for 20 seconds, and they're just trying to find a pass to get there. Or Tatum makes
bailout offense.
Misses a read. Smart misses a read, but I really wanted to get into the crunch time stuff. I wanted to shit on one dude in particular. He wears robes. I call it a cape because I call him Superman Smart, right? So I have all these stats that I looked up just because
the DPOY.
My eye test was like, they're not good in crunch time, and I told you, me and Kris have a group text, and I was sitting here going, Kris is like, I just want some crunch time minutes, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah. You'd think I don't want crunch time minutes? I was begging for it because 2 games went to crunch time minutes. The Heat outscored them in both of those games in crunch time. So here's the stats I'm going to give with the crunch time. Boston in these playoffs had 10 games in crunch time minutes. They're 6-4 in those games. All right, which isn't a horrible record, but you would want it to be better if you're a championship team, which I think they can win the chip. I'm just giving flaws to each team. Right. And then Superman Smart. Listen to Marcus Smart. In crunch time, he is shooting 17%. He has shot more shots than Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He's 0 for 4 from 3. He shot 24, or they've shot 24 free throws total in crunch time. Marcus Smart has 13 of them. And yes, that is him getting the inbound, but it's also him just being this overly arrogant, confident man. But he's 10 for 13 in crunch time. And in crunch time, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart have all combined for 41 points in the playoffs.
Okay.
Steph Curry has equaled that by himself in the same amount of minutes that they've played.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So you're talking about Marcus Smart misses last 6 shots in Game 7 where they almost had a collapse. Jason Tatum seems uninterested in crunch time, considering in 30 minutes in this playoffs he's only had 7 shots in crunch time.
Yeah.
So you're looking at an
Pretty
effect
alarming.
of, dude,
That's
you're talking
James
about
Harden
one
talk
shot
right there.
every
Yeah, that's James
every
Harden music
4
right there.
minutes.
That's crazy.
Dude, one shot every 4 minutes of crunch time is hella alarming.
And
And I don't think it's because Jason Tatum's afraid of the moment.
Yeah.
I just think he kind of gets out of sorts when he's getting doubled and stops moving, and kind of even when he hit that dagger that where he's fading on the left elbow against the
Not
Heat
a
and he
good
hits the
shot.
dagger
Just
3,
went
he
in.
was standing still with 2.8 left on the shot clock. Again, the shot before that 3, he hits a turnaround shot in Jimmy's face, but he's just standing still, caught the ball and shot. He doesn't know how to move off the ball at all.
Yeah.
But nobody talks about that with Jason Tatum ever.
Uh,
So this crunch time shit, if we get close games, I'm just saying, and everybody already thinks about the Warriors and their championship DNA, I think the Warriors have a humongous advantage when it comes to close games, and I think that's huge in the playoffs.
Oh, that's massive, man. Like that's where everyone all year has been touting on Tatum taking the leap to superstardom because his playmaking they feel like has caught up with his scoring.
Yeah.
And he's gotten a lot better as
It'll
a
never
passer,
catch up.
but it will never be Luka for one, and two.
No.
There's a clear. You've got the numbers you hit on were, that was dope. But the eye test too, like him and Luka are in different stratospheres when it comes to
Oh, yeah.
being sped up. Like that is what the greatest players of all the LeBrons and Lukas, the people of that ilk. Luka never appears sped up. He might make a poor pass, but it's not really a poor decision, if that makes sense. He might just execute it poorly.
That's what I always say.
And like
I
Tatum,
go good look, bad pass.
Yeah.
That's what I always
Tatum
say.
seems
Good look, bad pass.
very rushed. And what happens to teams when their best player, when the game is tight, they're all kind of not like scared of the moment, but they're tight and they're waiting on someone to show them that they have life. And I think Tatum being sped up, more or less, and maybe smart to a lesser degree, because for some reason he ends up with the ball in his hands a ton because he's their
And he
proverbial
wants
point
it.
guard, and he wants
That's the
ball.
problem. It's a problem.
Yeah, they've gotten all the way here, right? Like, don't get me wrong, but like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
team and this dynasty and these people, different pieces. But I hate both sides of the coin. I hate when people say experience doesn't matter, and I hate when people say experience is enough to win you a series. Like, I hate both sides of the coin.
Yes.
But I really
Me
do
too.
believe in this particular playoff run, right? Like, you can't draw parallels to me. You can't talk about the Warriors' DNA with the groups that had Kevin Durant. Like, this is a completely
No.
different roster.
No.
You've got the mainstays are here, but like it's different. But I do think in this particular playoff run, like you hitting on Steph Curry scoring as many points as the 3 main guys combined in crunch time, that shit matters, dude. Because
Yes.
year to year, and these games in the playoffs are recent enough for Boston. If you either and in their case, both of these have not experienced enough crunch time, and B, in the crunch time you have played in has been piss poor, like piss ass. That shit
That's how
shows
they
up
lost to the Heat.
in the championship round. Because you
Yeah,
bet
it's
your
not in the
ass,
bubble.
like Boston's better top to bottom, I believe. I believe they can play with Golden State, but if the games are close and Boston's not controlling it from start to finish or going into the fourth quarter with a cushion, I have a really hard time imagining them outplaying the Warriors, who, going back to my DNA and championship point, are comfortable playing when the game is tight. Right, like that
Yes.
is going to make a major, major difference. So, like all week, you asked me maybe last time we did the pod or in the group chat a couple days ago, who you picking? And I was like, man, I fucking hate Boston, but I think they're the better team. Like I think I might lean Boston. And I've sat on it for a couple days, and I just kept coming back to late game execution. In the Heat series, for example, if you never have to play in it, you can win, you can escape. Like it might not be an issue. But against a team like Golden State, who not only by the numbers is a better defensive team than the Heat, believe it or not, and are the number
Yep.
one offense in the playoffs, you've got literally the best of both worlds that you're playing against. So you give me a team who can score on you, maybe a little bit more than Miami could, and a team that knows how to perform when the game is tight, Man, no outcome in this series would shock me, other than Boston winning in like 5. Let me say that. I could see Boston winning in a long series. I could see Golden State winning in a long series. But I could see Golden State winning in a shorter series than a lot of people want to say too, and that's because of how well they are if the game is tight. So we don't have to skip. I'm taking Golden State. I'm going to do the cop-out, respectful Golden State in 7. They're ending. They haven't lost a game at home, by the way. The Warriors haven't. And Zach Lowe actually touched on this point today, which I thought was interesting. He talked about how the Warriors play so differently than any other team, combined with how amazing they are at home. Those first 2 games, he was talking to Richard Jefferson when he was with the Cavs. Not that RJ was playing, but like just the feel of the locker room, what it feels like to go to Oracle at the time and play them. And like they're so different that by the time you blink, like you're using those first 2 games to get your feet wet, and you blink and you're down 2-0. Like you're down 2-0, just like that.
Yeah, that was my thing with the turnovers with them.
Boston has been amazing on the road. Like, and every time they lose a game, they've won the next game by what, like an average of 8. Like it's been 18. It's been crazy. Set aside the game 7 against the Heat. Like their ability to bounce back has been insane. So there's like a push-pull, like a cat-mouse here going on between how Boston responds after a loss and can they stay in the series enough early to make it a true series. Because I don't see this as like Golden State's home court might be lethal, but Boston's also good on the road. And I don't see the Garden as being a place where you can't win, seeing as how the Heat did it, I think, twice? At least twice last. So I don't think, like, it's not one of those scenarios where Boston can go down 2-0, rely on going to the Garden, and then just, like, pack it up and say, it's all good, we'll be 2-2 after this. They're going to have to show that they can play with Golden State on the road. And like we said,
absolutely.
If the game gets tight, and I imagine it does, just because you don't see a lot of finals blowouts, not including, like, the Durant Warriors, like, when these teams are, like, even and you're nitpicking and you're picking strengths and weaknesses, you're gonna play in close games. And I just trust the Warriors tenfold over how much I trust the Celtics. So I'm rocking with Golden State.
Yeah, I am too. I got Celtics in a really. I got the Warriors in a really short series. I think they'll probably beat them in 5 or 6, to be honest.
Damn. Yeah, see, I could see it. I really could.
I just don't respect the Celtics, and I think everybody's X factor is Robert Williams, right? And we're like, oh, the limited minutes of Robert Williams. In the playoffs, this starting 5 that they go out with in the regular season has played 56 minutes in the playoffs, and they've been the worst offensive lineup in the entire playoffs that has played 50 or more minutes. So that is any combination that you could ever think of in the playoffs has played 50 minutes, I would imagine, and they're the worst out of all of them, which is pretty alarming. I don't know if it's chemistry. I don't know what it is, but Robert Williams to me is a big factor. I will say it. To me, if he's healthy the whole season, I legitimately believe he wins Defensive Player of the Year over his teammate Marcus Smart. And we've always talked about this. It's so funny that people shit on Draymond, but why do we care about Robert Williams? Because you have to stop what Draymond does somehow. He doesn't shoot. He rarely shoots layups, but somehow he drives with intention, and you have to guard it, and then he kicks. But we look at Robert Williams, we're like, hey, the length, the mobility, and then the lob threat on the other end is just something that can't be taught, and it's something that makes him absolutely special.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like, he's not a traditional big in the sense that he's not – you see Rudy Gobert, right? Like, he protects the paint extremely well.
Yeah, and he can't move.
But he's not mobile. Like, Robert Williams, we've seen at least once or twice this playoffs, him basically come from the paint to what a team thought was a wide-open three-pointer and kind of do that, like, Matisse Thybulle, like, fly in the air, reject it. His ability to recover at 7 feet. Like, he's a very switchable defender. Like, I'm not saying let him ISO against Steph Curry, but, like, he's smart enough and has enough length. Those guys are able to play off of them, still get a good contest on a shot, and yet deter anything they have going towards the rim. Like, that's what makes him special and different than most 7-footers out there.
Yeah, I mean, you have to realize Ime trusted him enough to put him on Jimmy Butler for games 5 and 6 until game 7 came. He's like, all right, we can't let this happen anymore. Yeah. And another thing, to hold on your point about switching. Bro, I read this stat today when I was going through, I just went nerd mode. Yeah. When the Boston Celtics switch, the ball handler on the switch averages .73 points per a possession. So you're talking about, which is the best by far. And this is with Al Horford. It's all the posts. It's Al Horford, Grant Williams, and Robert Williams switching. Yeah. You're talking about fucking Al Horford on an island stopping people. Yeah. Robert Williams on an island stopping people. Grant Williams on an island. And Grant Williams is up there with the players I hate just because of Arkansas. And if you watched him play SEC basketball, man, I swear to God, we've hated him for.
I did. I had Tennessee win it all that year. Him and Admiral Schofield.
We've hated him for a while, but honestly, his abilities on the court.
Sans touching at 0.7 per possession. That's extremely low. Like, that's very good for the defense.
That is
poor for the offense. So that
is.
They're not
absurd.
They're not. Philly did a lot of. They started to switch with James Harden because he's not adept enough at fighting through screens, and we have personnel issues.
Yeah.
Boston, they can switch, and they are really fucking good at it. That it's not a protection scheme. They're all capable of guarding. That's just what makes them.
I'm going to compare him to a Heat guy. Man, do you know what Grant Williams is to me? He's a more athletic PJ Tucker.
Yeah, I can see that.
All his shots are from I think 49% of his threes on the season are from the corner. He shoots 40%. He only averaged 8 points per game, but what does PJ Tucker average? Yeah. He is a switchable defender. Yeah. And really you could see oddly, and it may have been his ankle injury, but PJ Tucker looked a step slow on Tatum a lot of the Heat series, and it was kind of shitty to see because I've seen him give Kevin Durant not trouble, but really good contests and keep up with him. It was
James Harden was working his ass. So he couldn't get PJ off him either, and I don't even think it's because Harden's washed. I just think PJ.
People forget PJ didn't even finish Game 7. He played less than 20 minutes in Game 7 because I think he was hurting, and they just couldn't put him out there because he was hurt. Anyways, on the finals.
Yeah, Grant Williams. Really good defender, man. They just have it's like every. I don't know, everything on paper says Boston to me, except that they're playing the Warriors, except that they don't play well in crunch time. And I just I guess I'm banking on enough of these games being tight when it matters that Golden State's going to have the edge. I don't think it's going to be some like the rest of the playoffs, to be quite frank with you. This team wins by 20. Okay, they win by 18, 20, 18, 11. Maybe this is me praying that we get something good to watch as a viewer, that we get enough crunch time to actually analyze the series, and that our broadcasters, for us viewers at home that have the volume turned up, have something to talk about other than their cats and dogs and what grandma made for dinner last week. I want basketball analysis going into the closing portions of the game. So I'm really hoping the series can provide that, and if it does, I think Golden State is the better team.
Absolutely, and the one thing, as the struggles of the Celtics continue, and I always got to back my take with stats, in this playoffs, the Warriors are 12-1 when holding opponents to 120 points per 100 possessions. 120.
That's crazy.
Holding their opponent to 120 points per 100 possessions. That is
which is better than the best offense in the NBA.
Yes.
The best playoff, for our viewers, the best playoff offense in the playoffs is 117. So for reference,
you're talking about to lose a game.
Go above and beyond the greatest offense in NBA history. And even if you do, they're still
you're losing.
12-1. Yeah, they're still 12-1, which is crazy.
And that's the thing. It's another thing with the Warriors that's so interesting to me. Just looking at this series, one, I don't trust a lot of the players on the Celtics, but the way that they can score in bunches, while this team may struggle, or even if you have a good night, the way they hit so many threes, and yes, the Celtics are holding opponents to 32% shooting, from 3 in the playoffs, it's going to make them slow down a lot. The efficiency of which the Warriors run at is scary to go against if you don't have a good offense. That's why the Heat was so scary. If we when I thought we were going to make the finals when Game 7 starts, and I'm like, bro, if we struggle in the half court, I don't care how fucking good your defense is. I'm sorry. The Warriors are going to have some wide open looks that you just can't.
Twitter was already like, the series is, as everyone did against Miami, which wrongfully so. They made
so that's what this is why it's kind of hard when. But you've seen success against the Warriors when you're going against elite defensive teams in the finals. I mean, obviously they've never lost in the Western Conference while they're healthy.
Right.
In the finals against LeBron teams, because remember, every time LeBron goes to the finals, Lakers, Cleveland, Heat, he's had one of the best defenses in the NBA.
Yep.
That's what happens, and we've seen them struggle against that, and then their runs don't work as well. Their transition points aren't there. If you make them slow down and they aren't holding you hostage by having a fucking 7-point lead, like literally holding you hostage, like you're just on the other end going, we got to score every possession.
Yep.
That's what it feels like when you were down by 8 to the Warriors. You're like, we have to score every possession now. Because it's going to be 14 if we miss 2 shots. It can be 14. It's over.
You take bad shots, which the Celtics are very prone to doing. They take horrendous shots. And then what do you got? You got Draymond.
They just have shot makers.
Draymond with a full head of steam, dribbling down the court. You got Steph and Clay filling the wings. You got Wiggins diving.
He just throws it behind his head.
Somebody comes out of nowhere and just loonies over there, just grabbing it and putting in a layup. It's funny too, man. Like I wanted to give my guy Klay Thompson some love. Like how much I've loved Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
I think
absolutely
his comeback has been. We spent a lot of discourse on Twitter shitting on his shot selection and playing himself back into shape, which all natural progressions. Like, it's going to happen. Klay Thompson's playoffs.
Better than being timid.
Klay Thompson's playoff stats: 19.8 points. I don't care about the rebounds, assists. That's not what he does.
Me neither.
45.7% from the floor, 40% from 3.
Oh, so he's back.
9
that's him.
From 3. Like this is literally
that's him.
Klay Thompson. So
other than his defense,
his defense.
But that's his output.
But now they have Andrew Wiggins to take a Tatum, who I imagine he's going to spend most of his time on Tatum.
And Otto Porter has been out, by the way. And Otto Porter isn't some cold.
And apparently Gary Payton might be ready for the finals. And for those who don't watch basketball, he's
their best perimeter defender.
He might be like the best guard defender in the NBA. Yes, I'm including Drew Holiday. Yes, I'm including Ben Simmons. Like he doesn't
Marcus
have the name.
Smart.
Marcus Smart. He doesn't have the recognition. But Gary Payton might just be that. And so I don't care how much he gives up in size. He's going to be able to battle against some of those perimeter guys like Derek White. Derek White wasn't looking at the rim before. He damn sure ain't going to look at the rim with Gary Payton on him. He's strong enough. He has a strong enough base. Maybe he can't deal with Jaylen Brown in the post, but they're not going to feel like that's a matchup that can get hunted. Gary Payton's a really good player. Otto Porter's been interchangeable on defense. And like I said, Klay Thompson is playing like normal Klay Thompson, 20 a game on 40%
on offense. Yeah.
I mean,
and I got to shit on the Warriors as we're riding them because we're picking them.
Oh, for sure.
Listen, we want to talk about all the teams that haven't played anybody or have gone against injury-prone guys or whatever you want to talk about, the injury-ridden teams. The Celtics have had the hardest road in this playoffs to me by far, including the Middleton out series. Listen, man, I saw a LeBron-led team in 2018 with a starting lineup of J.R. Smith, Tristan Thompson, George Hill. They just put pieces together, and it worked, and they beat this Celtics team. Obviously, they're younger, all that different team, but at the same time, they've had the hardest road. The Warriors, I mean, let's be real. They could have lost that series to Memphis.
Oh, yeah.
If Ja was healthy. Y'all forget, Ja was averaging 38 points a game against the Warriors.
Brown finished the series, Memphis for sure winning that bitch. For sure. One thing that I want to touch on, real quick.
Yeah.
If you think of the only times, though, that Golden State has lost, right? The only times. The LeBron 3-1, right? And Kevin Durant's gone. Klay tears his ACL in Game 6. Nick Nurse is literally running a box and 1 and sending 2 to 3 guys at Steph Curry while 4 non-shooters sit around the perimeter. And Steph was still, I know he missed it, a game-winning shot away from forcing a Game 7, and I know they don't have Klay. They probably lose anyways, but, think about the 2 times that they've lost. A generational talent in LeBron James and a generational playoff run with nobody playing with him. At least, well, Clay joined him until Game 6, but you get what I'm saying. Like, those are the only two times they've lost. Like, it takes, like, a generational type. Like, you guys want to call Tatum a superstar, and maybe he still is if they lose. I don't know. I don't want to put him in superstar yet. That's like it's very rarefied air. You need a guy to go off. Like, you're not just going to beat this team playing, like, our brand of basketball. Like, I don't want to hear that stuff, man. You got to get different against Golden State because they're so multifaceted. Like, they just
the
don't
Celtics aren't
lose.
some ball movement gods. Like, what are we doing?
That's going to play straight into Golden State's hands. And not only that, like, Marcus Smart got voted DPOY. He's not the defensive player of the year to me, but he got voted. Congrats, like, he earned it.
Draymond about to come out and be like, "Fuck you! I'm taking it personal."
Draymond's already licking his. And you know he's going to be talking mad shit. But another thing, like, it's and he's had a lot of success apparently. I saw a stat today about Steph Curry's last 5 games against Marcus Smart. They were insane. Now, a lot of that was probably when Steph was playing with the G League Warriors. I don't know all the context behind it, but I still feel like guarding Steph is a different game for Marcus Smart than the other people that he's guarded. Now, can you chase him around screens all game and still be that, like, you know, that might even benefit Boston, to be honest with you. And Marcus Smart is doing less on offense. Like, if he's just doing less and more deferring, because he's turned into, like, he's not a point guard. But he's come a long way, like, since he got into the league. But like you said, any team running Marcus Smart at point guard, probably not going to win the whole thing. So it's like, I'll be fascinated to see how that wears on him. Maybe it's not so much him, because they are content switching everyone they have onto Steph, although I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think they're going to be content switching just anybody onto Steph. They might try it at first, but I don't know. There's just so many storylines here, man. I think it all comes back to Draymond's Defensive Player of the Year caliber right now. Klay Thompson on 9 attempts a game from downtown, shooting 40%. He's Klay Thompson, no matter what it looks like sometimes. He had at least 3 abysmal first halves against the Mavs, like absolute god-awful. And then you look, and he came to life every third quarter, because that's what they do. They punch you in the mouth in the third. And I just think, like, what you talked about, how Golden State makes you play sped up when they get a 7-point lead. But I do think it matters that their core guys have been here a little bit, and they've, like we said, dealt with clutch time in this series, because you got to stay locked in right here if you're Boston. You can't get away with lapses when it's Steph Curry and Klay Thompson coming over a screen versus Gabe Vincent, you know what I mean, and different guys out there.
There's literally not a possession, pass, anything off. And
you cannot sleep. You can't blink. Or Steph Curry has an inch of space. He's in a corner somewhere. You lost track. Boom, 3 balls going up.
So that was the thing I want to touch on while you said the Draymond thing. I thought it was also – I just started thinking about it. I was like – just the matchup started going through my head, and I was thinking, okay, so Boston does the 2 big lineup if Robert Williams is healthy, and I think they're just going to play him because they have to. If they go 2 big – they can match that with Al Horford getting guarded by Draymond, Kevon Looney on Robert Williams, and they may do the Spo, Bam, and Embiid thing where they stagger Robert Williams against Kevon Looney. Like, when Kevon Looney comes out, Robert Williams comes in. But at that point, you're risking a foul out. We've seen Grant Williams foul and play terrible, and he will get out-rebounded and try to grab and all that with bigger players like a Kevon Looney, if you don't want Grant Williams over there guarding Draymond.
Yep.
And I think they would have to do that. But at the same time, you want Robert Williams in the paint laying off of him, things of that nature. I think it's very interesting, those matchups on offense and defense. I think you're going to have to, if the Celtics are going to have to take advantage of the non-Robert Williams minutes if that is a problem. And I think it's more on the other side with Boston taking advantage of non-Draymond.
That's where it's really interesting, too, because we talk about, you said Rob Williams would have been your Defensive Player of the Year if he didn't get hurt. Like, a part of, and this is literally true, they grade defensive metrics based on your ability to grab defensive rebounds. Like, that's why Rudy Gobert is so fucking high in all the metrics. And Jokic is a great rebounder. That's why his defensive VORP Raptor is, like, higher than Embiid's. We're not going to touch on that. He's got good hands, whatever. We're not going to touch on that. But to my point, an added part of playing defense is rebounding. And rebounding is where Kevon Looney kicked the Mavericks' ass over and over and over. So it's like, if you're Boston, if Golden State plays too big, Draymond and Looney, if you're Boston, naturally you want to say, let's get small, let's get out and run, let's space them out, let's make Looney come to the perimeter.
But
But can you survive the glass? And so it's like that's what makes Golden State so unique is because if say Boston's small works for a stretch and Golden State's like, you know what, we got to downsize. Okay, so they can slide Draymond to the 5, bring the pool party off the bench. Then it's like, I'm taking our small over your small probably. Like our small, we live in small ball. We know how to play small ball. And so it's like, I don't know, it's going to be tough for Boston to win as far as matching personnel. The coaching matchup's going to be really fun because Ime Udoka clearly got a lot of Jason Kidd. We were talking with Landon earlier about the Mavs, how it takes time to buy in. The Celtics were buried before January. They were below 500. It was, I'm liking every single Jaylen Brown tweet. Joel Embiid's liking Jaylen Brown tweets. Can Philly get Jaylen Brown? Send him over. I was all up on this talking to you about it. They stayed the course. They've been the best team in the NBA since mid-January. They have, top 1 or 2 defense in the NBA. They were number 8 in offense or whatever. It's a really good fucking team. But they just haven't seen a beast like this in a series where Steve Kerr really gets to shine. Because like you said, this ain't no Luke Walton. We saw what Mike Brown was in the 2 games Kerr was out. They couldn't break 100 points against a team without Ja Morant. But Ime Udoka's been really fucking good. The proof's in the pudding. He's turned that team entirely around after they bought in. So I don't think this is this isn't like Steve Kerr, Brett Brown. This Steve Kerr, Doc Rivers.
No.
Ime's good, man. So I don't think Golden State has this insurmountable edge at coaching, which really gives Boston some more allure in the series. That's why the whole thing's fascinating, man. They match up. There's so many juicy matchups throughout the series.
Yeah,
it's
Ime Udoka is smashing Nia Long. They bought in immediately. They were bought in when they saw
he was on the Sixers sideline 2 years ago. They let him walk. Now look at him. Everybody but the guy that we fucking hired turns out to be a good coach. Go figure.
And you know what's crazy? You rarely see a team get to go from, as much as me and you have fucking shit on Danny Ainge with his fake superstar trades, it's rare that you go from Brad Stevens as a coach, Danny Ainge as an executive, to Brad Stevens as an executive and Ime Udoka
Brad
as a
Stevens
coach.
should have won Executive of the Year, by the way.
Bro.
When they...
Just bringing Al back, and then keeping, and
Kemba
the thing was nobody liked
Kemba
Robert
was
Williams.
Washed.
He's gone.
But they traded a top 16 first rounder and Kemba to get Al Horford, and I was like, holy fuck, that's a lot.
That's what I said too.
I watched Al Horford play in Philly. He looked cooked. The whole world thought he was cooked.
Yeah.
And that trade got destroyed, not for the Kemba Al. If you could have just traded them two, nobody would have even thought it's a landslide win for the Celtics.
Nobody would have gave a fuck.
No. The fact they gave a first-rounder to get off Kemba as well, I was like, holy fuck, that's a terrible trade.
And now Kemba really has been sitting out on every team that he's played now.
Kemba's
I think it's funny.
That Al Horford, ice him up, let's hope we can get value for him.
And
Al Horford,
don't forget,
this
key part, Robert Williams. His whole Time Lord thing is because he never showed up on time.
Yeah.
But Brad Stevens kept giving him a chance. And then when you have that former coach, it almost seems like a beautiful thing. I think nobody can do what Brad Stevens could do, by the way, because Brad Stevens is legitimately a basketball genius. And I don't like calling people geniuses. I think it gets thrown around too much. But he's legitimately a basketball genius. He team built. He team built this year. Was a great coach. One of the top basketball minds in the league. The way that he went to conference finals with these babies who are now turning into their prime is incredible. But yeah, him giving Robert Williams all those chances.
They had so many different iterations of this team. And Zach Lowe touched on this today. The Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, Terry Rozier, they almost went to the
and then Isaiah Thomas before that.
They almost went to the finals with Kyrie and was Gordon Hayward there that year? Was he hurt as well?
I think that maybe the year he broke his ankle.
They have all these 20-year-olds Terry was hooping against Braun. They went to a game 7. The Tatum dunk on LeBron that lives in infamy. All that this was. They've had so many different iterations of this team, and again, I heard, do we trade Jaylen Brown for Kawhi? Are the Celtics in the play for AD? Remember all that shit? Do we offer Jaylen Brown? And the Celtics, James Harden. Every single time the Celtics held firm, and they wanted their young core to grow, and they just got better and better and better. And then Brad Stevens with a masterclass, like me and you, I've talked shit about Derek White as much as anybody. When he plays, I'm not expecting 22 points a game, but like
aggressive.
When he's aggressive and looking at the rim, and like he can dribble downhill and hit floaters and shoot layups, and he can switch on defense, like that acquisition and Al Horford alone have been home runs, because Al Horford, like, I always hear people joke about how there's a fucking time machine in Oklahoma City, how they literally put him in a chamber and just kept him off the shelf. And he looks like the Al Horford of old. Like, he's a monster defensively right now. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
He's got random juice off the dribble. He dunked on Giannis's fucking head off the dribble from 3. It's like, who is this guy? So, like,
and I don't think they've used his playmaking out of the post enough. But that's not a wrinkle in their offense that they're going to use.
He's one of the best mid-range, or he's one of the best big passers from the mid-range in the NBA.
Absolutely.
That kind
those
of
Atlanta
style,
days are
give him the ball at the
crazy.
nail, and he can look around, and he's super smart.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Brad Stevens should have won GM of the year, in my opinion. But you all they can do is put the pieces in play. Ime Udoka had to turn him into a team, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
So, props to him, man.
Now they're in the finals.
Fucking finals
versus the Warriors. You have Golden State in 7.
Yeah, they have Golden State in 7.
Okay. I'll say Golden State. I'm gonna make it official.
Boston in a short
Golden
series.
State in 6.
Golden State in 6. Boston in a short series would shock me. That's the only shock I would have.
Yeah.
I could see Golden State winning shortly. Because when you get to crunch time, those games are coin flips, right? Like, can you execute better down the stretch? They go either. Look at the Mavs series, right?
And we know,
And then we sit here on this podcast, and we're like, I feel like the Mavs could have easily been up 2-1. Well, they could have.
Yeah,
but they're not the
but
Warriors.
You weren't.
Right? Like, they could.
Yeah, it goes back to all the shit I talked about in crunch time.
Yeah, so
just
it's
one of them things.
If you can get Boston down there, man, keep it close, which the Warriors can, and they can spray on you in a heartbeat, the third quarter in particular, and make Boston play sped up, they're going to be in good shape. So, I'm going to go Golden State in 7. That's probably more so my heart hoping that the series goes long, but I do think Golden State. Boston's better top to bottom personnel-wise, but I just think it all comes down to how Golden State operates when the game gets tight, and I'm banking on more tight games than not. Therefore, I think Golden State's going to win.
Yeah, I want to say Golden State in 5. Honestly, I do.
It's
like
tough
my head's beating.
It's tough to say.
Golden State 5.
It was tough to say.
But
Golden
I'm going
State
Golden
over
State
the
6.
Nuggets in 5 for me. Like, that one even hurt.
Yeah. So Golden State over the Celtics in 6 for me, and that's our finals preview.
Starts
people,
tomorrow, folks.
Like, subscribe, all that bullshit, man. So, all right, y'all have a good night. Deuce.
Peace.